Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, 2nd edition handbook on alignment, you'll find several entries describing the 9 traditional alignments in Dungeons and Dragons, which have largely remained a thing up until today, with some modifications occasionally, depending on the edition. You have lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil, neutral good, true neutral, neutral evil, chaotic good, chaotic neutral, and chaotic evil. And this, of course, is not a good way of describing the real world, but it's a useful metric in the game. And specifically, if you look at the true neutral description, when they try to describe to the player what it means to be true neutral, they give you the scenario of a forest that is being, say, plundered by a bunch of gnolls, I believe. And a true neutral druid is acting in a way that he believes is in accordance with the true neutral ethos or alignment. And so he aids the local barony against the gnolls. And at some point in time, when the gnolls are about to be destroyed, he either relinquishes his aid, withdraws, or even helps the gnolls outright. At least it's suggested. Why am I talking about this? Well, as someone who's basically a centrist, my biggest concern with the left, and this is why I did not state in the title the issue with the left, and language is a funny thing. Had I used the definite article, the connotation of what I was trying to say here would have been very different. I would have been creating a general principle of what the primary issues of the left are. And the problem with that, of course, is that it's highly individual. Not everyone has the same issue with the left that I do, and my issues with the left are not necessarily the issues that everyone else has. And so in some sense, it's important that I say this is my issue or my issues with the left. And really what concerns me most about the left is the current state of authoritarianism with the left. And the reality is that authoritarianism is not the unique prospect of the left. Authoritarianism can and has existed with all types of political incarnations. What bothers me about the left is the degree of power it has, is just how much they can get done, and effectively a type of soft fascism that they've created in schools, in the government, universities, etc. I say soft fascism because it's not official fascism. They're not advocating for that. And I think you'd probably be hard pressed to argue that what the left does is akin to traditional or classical fascism as we've known in the 20th century. So instead, I'll call it soft fascism. And by that I mean, if you say the wrong thing, you can be punished. There's also a lot of collusion between corporations and left-wing agendas. So that's another element that reminds me of fascism. But soft fascism, I think, is accurate just because of the degree of power the left has and the outright reach and influence it has. And here's the thing. I care a lot less about the specific things the left is pushing. Not that I'm interested in them. They're not aspects or spheres of interest that I have. But I care a lot less about those things than I do about the willingness on the part of the left to enforce these things and to force these things on other people. I'm somebody who gets rubbed the wrong way by people foisting their views upon other people and forcing them to conform to them. In this sense, I have to say I'm very much an exponent of the leave me alone ism philosophy. And with that said, I would be just as concerned if there were this type of authoritarianism in place with regards to the right. And the obvious reason for this is I don't think right-wing authoritarianism is really any better than the left. Now, I should probably define, however vaguely, what I mean by authoritarianism. I don't mean having rules in place and having certain restrictions because that seems to be the hallmark of a functioning society. It's the reason why you don't go outside when you're low on cash and just stab the guy next to you and swipe his wallet. Although some people would do that, they're considered criminal, rightly so. But at this stage, the authority and the power is in the hands of the left. And that bothers me because what they've done is they've taken their worldview and they've foisted it upon everybody, on me, on you, on people who don't necessarily agree with them. If the roles were reversed, I'd be just as concerned. Now, what would a right wing authoritarian scenario look like? Comparably speaking, I think you could expect a lot of parochialism, a lot of restrictions on the types of things you could view, say pornography, the types of things that would be permissible. And some of this has to do, obviously in the case of the right, with, and this is kind of a meme now, but it's true, discuss sensitivity. People on the right do, if you look at the studies, seem to display more discuss sensitivity than people on the left. Trade openness is a thing that the people cite for the left. I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't really have a high degree of discuss sensitivity. I'm somewhat open, but perhaps not as terribly open as people on the left. But yeah, I could imagine that on the right, if you were to ever get a scenario of right-wing authoritarianism, you get a lot of these hyper-conservative restrictions on things. You get parochialism. You would get perhaps even different punitive measures. And that would alarm me too. So my beef with the current state of political affairs is not the same beef that people who describe themselves or at least feel themselves to be on the right is per se. There are some things I think I might agree on, but probably not too many. Because generally speaking, I don't really care what people do as long as they leave other people alone. If people want to act out their bizarre fantasies of being a furry or a fuzzy or whatever the hell it's called these days, that's fine. But the minute you force people to conform to some, I don't know, language stricture on, well, you need to call me this, and if you don't do it, we're going to fire you from your job. That's when I start getting worried. And that's where we are right now with the left. It's this authoritarianism that really bothers me. In some sense, I'm a bit like the Druid. I'm looking for a balance of power. I don't really want to see an ascendancy of the left or the right. And the reason for that, as I've stated thus far, is that I fear authoritarianism, extreme authoritarianism, not the basic authoritarianism that's present in society, because it restricts people's freedom, and I'm a big believer in leaving people alone. Now, with that said, I do think, depending on the situation, the scenario, that the right is more likely to just leave people alone to their own devices than the left, because the left has this weird tendency of trying to fix the world and every problem in it, of what are the problems of the world? We need to correct everything. We need to make the world a better place. The right, on average, tends to recognize that there are some things that are without solution. There are some things that are irreconcilable, and so you just leave it be and you just hope for the best and you work with what you can and what you have. And so there are differences and nuances, and I recognize them. But with that said, extreme authoritarianism is my main issue here. So I see myself in this as a bit of a traveler. I do not wish necessarily to see right-wing goals realized because some of them terrify me as much as the current state of affairs. But I do want to get back to a state of equilibrium where neither side has too much power and they, frankly speaking, are fighting each other back and forth in an effort to gain that power with neither succeeding. That is my view. I thought I explained that to people because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding when it comes to my personal view of things. People see me as a sort of irrelevant fence-sitting centrist with no perspectives, and that's simply not true. It really depends on what the issue is. If people ask me, Stardust, what do you think about issue X? I might say, well, that's what I think about issue X. But generally speaking, everything I've described in this video, that is my overarching political philosophy. I dislike political extremism. I dislike extreme authoritarianism, too much authority. I like to be left alone. I want to leave other people alone. And I want people to be left in peace. And you get either side getting too much power, and well, you have problems, in my humble opinion. Anyway, just wanted to put this video out there. Hopefully, there'll be more to come, assuming I get a wink of sleep and I'm still alive. And as always, may the gods watch over you. Bye bye.
If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.